Oh, peace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to All Things Geekery. Today we're going to be talking about the true villain of Daredevil. Check it out. First thing I want to do is I definitely want to give a shout out to young people in Baltimore Youth Uprising, in the police murder of Freddie Gray. We're with you here in solidarity, and I want to, there's times when I want to do these videos, and then I kind of feel like they're just irrelevant because of what is going on. So before I get into Daredevil, I want to mention two things. The first thing is I'm currently reading Octavia's Brood by Adrienne Marie Brown and Walida Imarisha. And it's pretty much about science fiction stories for social justice movements. I highly recommend this. It really brought a lot to perspective for me because I don't know how to, sometimes I don't know how to connect, what I'm involved with when it comes to geek stuff like science fiction, speculative fiction, whatever you want to call it, and then coupling it with my activist work outside of the literacy component. I do these things because I want to promote literacy. So I'm always promoting science fiction stories and comic books to young people, particularly young people of color, so that they can read. So there's, outside of that component, I don't know how to make those connections, but thanks to Octavia's Brood, thanks for somebody's wonderful analysis of Daredevil on Twitter, who I cannot remember who said this first, because this is not an original idea. It's helped me connect both of these things, and it demonstrates how oftentimes when we're involved in these circles, whether it's science fiction or comic books, oftentimes people of color are usually written out of these stories, whether we're talking about a movie about the future of Earth or the universe. People of color are usually, completely written out of those things. And I think what Octavia's Brood emphasizes is that sometimes it's going to have to be up to us to write ourselves into the future, and I think this is important. So let me just add those. Anyway, if you haven't been watching Daredevil, I suggest that you watch it because there's going to be a lot of spoilers here. It's, first of all, it's a good show. I highly recommend it. It does remind me of a lot of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, as well as some Ed Brubaker's stuff. I think Frank Miller and then Ed Brubaker's is probably the best work that I've seen, in my opinion, when it comes to Daredevil. And we see Daredevil being this guardian of Hell's Kitchen, of the downtrodden, of the voiceless, not just as Daredevil, but also as a defense lawyer, Matt Murdock, with his partner, Foggy Nelson. And I think that's really part of why I like Daredevil, because he deals with things that, whereas you have the Avengers and they deal with, otherworldly and galactic issues, people like Daredevil, and the Punisher, they deal with stuff that's actually like dealing with regular people, everyday people. And I think what's great is that, and it's something that's already happened in New York City. Hell's Kitchen is a situation where you have people that are considered undesirables, whether they're people of color or poor white folks. And you see that the true villain in Daredevil is actually gentrification. And the character of the Kingpin, who you guys know as Wilson Fisk, he represents that new New York City, where he wants to change the world in his image, in an image that he sees, and in doing so, he needs to remove some of these undesirables. What's probably scary about this idea is that in cities throughout the United States, you see a lot of gentrification going on. And I think the Netflix series of Daredevil, you see Foggy and Murdock are helping this woman, along with Karen Page, who they're trying to move her out of their building, along with the other tenants. And they do all these, different, the Kingpin does all these little subtle ways of getting them out, offering them money, sending people over there to threaten them. The landlord is off on vacation, and they live in really, really horrible conditions. And it's something that we see throughout the United States. And particularly, actually, you see this happening in Baltimore, where, they're always telling the people, well, they're destroying their own communities. But when you go into those communities, you see that those buildings are just, and it's just, they're just disgusting. They're poor conditions where those people live at. But yet, those things don't make the news. And we see that in the Daredevil series, where those people are virtually ignored until Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson take that case. I think what's crucial is that Matt Murdock in the series realizes that he cannot fight these kind of enemies as Daredevil. Like, he can't fight that as Daredevil, right? He can take care of the goons and the thugs that are sent by these men. But he realizes that he has to also come from a legal front. And that's where, Matt Murdock and Karen Page and Foggy Nelson step in to do that. My biggest issue with that is that we see, again, even though Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson are from Hell's Kitchen and they want to see their community restored to how it was, I notice that people of color are taken out of it. And I think the situation with Ben Urich, who, by the way, is one of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe, and he's not a superhero, and it tripped me out that they made him a black man in this TV show, Netflix series, and in the Marvel Universe, he's white. I think in the scene where Kingpin murders him with his bare hands, and let me remind you that the series Daredevil is as gritty as the comic book. There's some scenes that are really bad. I don't recommend it for children. Anyway, but the scene where Kingpin attacks Ben Urich in his home and kills him viciously, it really triggered a lot of moments for me. Again, it demonstrates how a lot of times people of color are written out of stories. And we see this happen here, literally erased. And I really find that scene to be very, very disturbing, and it says a lot, not just about the writers and how producers and people in Hollywood or Netflix or whatever do these kind of things, and also in the comic book world where they're just erased, and it really bothered me because Ben Urich, and it's in the comic book, he gets put through the ringer, like he gets beaten, tortured so many times. But he's still alive. He's actually a crucial member of the Marvel Universe. So to see Ben Urich, played by an African American, and he's subsequently murdered, really, really bothered me and triggered a lot for me. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. So again, we see that the true villains of Daredevil, and it's not just justification, but erasure of people of color. Once again, thank you for checking out another episode of All Things Geekery. I hope you enjoyed it. Please support, retweet, repost, do whatever you can. The comments are down below. Until we meet again next time, peace.